Hi, hope you're having a lovely week. I'm Alana from Upcycling NZ. Welcome to my crafting channel. We're going to be working with toy blocks today. So let's upcycle. I can never walk past toy wooden blocks when I'm thrifting, so I picked up these ones and I'm going to use the rectangular blocks in a dark green and a dark red stain. I'm using my homemade chalk paint in the colour Mary Rose. If you want to have a look at how I make the chalk paints, I'll put a link down below in the description box for you. So I'm going to paint the face of these red blocks and the sides, and I have 8 blocks in total. I've got a lot of these blocks in my stash, all different shapes and sizes, but the rectangular ones tend to be the ones I don't use very often. Once that coat was dry, I painted the ends as well, but I've left the other side of the block unpainted. Now I'm going to take Fran Green, another of my homemade chalk paints, and I named this batch of colours after some of my subscribers. I'll do the same to these 8 green blocks, and I'll only need 1 coat for this project because I'm going to distress these back and allow some of that underlying colour to show through. I really love the muted tones of these chalk paints, and the colours I've created really feed into the antiquing vintage style that I do a lot of projects in. Next I'll do that unpainted face of the red blocks in the colour page. I'm taking a bit more care with this colour to ensure it just stays on the face of the block. What I'll be making with these are a little bit of a novelty item. It's a nice small craft to be able to do and doesn't take up much space while you're doing it. I'll paint the reverse side of my green blocks in the colour Natalie. And then I just waited for them to dry, and I'm going to take a sanding block, and I've got a fairly heavy grit on there, and I'm just going to sand back the very edges of each of the blocks. And you can see that by sanding it, it allows a little bit of that colour to show through from underneath. The colours I've chosen are going to tie into the transfers that I'm going to apply to the front of these blocks, but I better just remove the dust I've created. When they were completely dry, I took all the Mary Rose coloured blocks and formed a square. Then I'm taking some masking tape and I'm going to apply that all the way around the edges of my square to hold it together. Of course, you could use more blocks and make this a lot bigger if you wanted. I'll slip this into a shoebox lid to also help hold it in place. Now I've chosen some transfers that will fit onto the size of the blocks, and I got these from the Temu website. These ones are a glossy finish coating, and they tend to be very difficult to use, so I always fussy cut it out, and then it has less tendency to rip off your paint when you remove it. So with these, you just peel off the backing, apply it to your project. It has a sticky back. I'm also going to cut one out and apply it to the other side. And I'll take the little plastic spatula that comes with the transfers, and I'm going to rub the design only, trying not to get those very edges where I will be peeling the layer back. I did the other side as well before I started to peel anything back because it held my square together nicely so that I could apply it without any movement. And I'm so sorry, but I'm going to have to make you wait to see what that looks like because this was the order I did it in, and I did the whole other set of blocks, both sides. Okay, here we go. Wish me luck. Yes, that one worked. These transfers work much better on an unpainted surface, but if you're very careful, they work nicely on a painted surface as well. Now I can take my Stanley knife and cut between the transfer and between each block. Now I'll repeat the process on the other side. Aren't these images just beautiful? I'm taking a piece of the backing sheet and I'm rubbing that and burnishing that transfer right down so I know it's adhered in all areas. And now I can cut between each block on the other side and release them. By now I'm sure that you've guessed that I'm making little double-sided puzzles. I'm sanding in a downward motion around those transfers to ensure that there's no edge that can be lifted on them. Here's a look at all 4 puzzle faces. The chalk paint that I use will need sealing, so I'm using Feast & Watson's soft wax. It's a clear wax, and I apply it with a shaving brush. With clear wax, you just allow it to dry for 10 to 15 minutes and then buff off the excess wax. Now, I know that my puzzles seem really simple and maybe even childlike, but trust me, these are adult puzzles. To demonstrate, I asked my pop to solve the puzzles for me out in the sun yesterday. And bear in mind that I've sped this footage up by 10 times. It became obvious pretty quickly that it was hard to distinguish which side of the puzzle he should be working on, so those background colours are really important. My images are very similar too, so that added to the difficulty of this puzzle.
Oh, 2 flamingos.
The other ones.
That's what was cocking me up. Now what have I done? Very good.
So as you can see, that one was way harder than it looked. To simplify your puzzles, you could do very contrasting colours on your background. And if you wanted to simplify it again, you could do some very contrasting images on the front of your puzzles. So the total time it took Pop to solve these 2 puzzles was 13 minutes. So with each puzzle taking 7.5 minutes, I think that's just about the right amount of time for a visitor to have a little play and exercise their brain for a minute, and it doubles as beautiful home decor.
Yeah.
Very good.
I'll show you those completed images shortly. Next I'm going to be taking some square blocks or cubes. These are raw wood blocks, and I'm going to be painting them all in chalk paint. So I'm going to take a selection of colours for all 6 sides. I've got 7 colours here, so I didn't end up using one of them. You could use any quality paint for this project that you might have lying around the house. I'll paint the first side in my homemade chalk paint colour Michelle. Then I'll paint another side in Natalie, doing the opposite side so I can hold it. Then I did the other 4 sides in Fran Green, Suda, Kristen and Mary Rose. Only some of these colours needed 2 coats. Once they were dry, I needed to sand all of those edges down to the wood. See how that made each square really pop? I've done that to all of my blocks, and then I'm going to take some of my scrappy transfers, all my little tiny ones, and I want to get rid of them all. So this is a great way to use up all your teeny weeny transfers. So I've peeled off the backing, I'll lay my transfer down, and I'm using my plastic spatula again to really rub that image into the block of wood. These transfers are the matte finish ones, and they are much easier to use. So in some cases I've just used the one transfer, and others I've put more than one transfer on, and in some cases I've overlaid the transfers until I was happy with the image that I created on each. I think these are absolutely adorable. Look at them. This part of the project could be done on your coffee table while you're watching telly. It's just such a relaxing and enjoyable thing to be doing. So I went ahead and finished all of the blocks, and I did have a limited range of colours in my transfers, but they kind of matched the limited range of colours I had in my chalk paints. So they seem to complement each other quite nicely. So there's my 7 little blocks. These make great shelf sitters. You could change your images if you get tired of them. You could stack them in a line. You could just stack them one on top of each other. You could use them in your vignettes and get the colour coordination that you want by changing which direction your blocks are sitting. Those transfers do need to be sealed though, and I can't go past using a bit of antiquing wax on anything that could be made to look more vintage. And I'll just take my little sponge brush and offload a lot of the wax and just apply it to those raw edges that I made from sanding. And it'll naturally just sort of feather out into the edges of each image. If you're going to make a set of these, don't be afraid to use bright and vivid colours. If you antique wax them, they will still look vintage. And if you're going for children's blocks, a great idea would be to find one of those fairy tale children's books with little pictures and decoupage those onto the faces of your blocks. I'll continue on with all of these, and if any of my blocks had too much wax on it, I'm just wiping it back with a paper towel. Toy blocks are a great item for crafting, and there's many shapes that I use a lot of. This project was a great way to use up the ones that have been sitting around in my stash for quite a while. I'll finish these blocks with a coat of the Feast & Watson clear wax. That'll help to preserve those transfers and make sure they don't lift off the face of my blocks. It also smells really nice, this stuff. The wax also helps to hide the very edge of your transfer line, which a lot of crafters are calling the panty line. So the waxing process makes that disappear. I waited 10 minutes, buffed it off, and these are finished. I'm off to work. Bye for now. Oh, I almost forgot the most important thing. If you enjoyed my content, please drop me a like, subscribe, or drop me a comment for this hard-working old girl. Cheers.